Hi there, welcome to my YouTube channel Dhyani classes. If you are watching my video for the first time, do subscribe my channel, hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever new video will be uploaded. So in today's video, we will cover the second part of the chapter, His First Flight, written by Liam of Flattery from class 10 CBSE. So let's get started. So in the first part of the chapter, we have seen how the mother seagull was trying to attract the little seagull and shows him food so that he would try to fly. And when this bird saw a piece of fish in his mother's beak, the sight of food maddened him because he was very hungry and wanted to tear that fish as her mother was tearing. So while seeing a piece of fish, he couldn't control his hunger and he started calling his mother because he wanted to tell her to bring that piece of fish to him or give it to him because he was feeling hungry. And then his mother also started replying in him in the same manner in order to make fun of him. So let's begin with the second part of the chapter now. Further he says he kept calling plaintively and after a minute or so he uttered a joyful scream. So here he is saying that this little seagull kept calling plaintively. That means he was calling his mother very sadly because he was so hungry and he had not eaten anything for the past 24 hours. And then after a minute or so he uttered a joyful scream. That means after some time suddenly he started feeling happy and screaming happily out loud because his mother had picked up a piece of the fish and was flying across to him with it. So he was screaming out loud in happiness because his mother had picked up a piece of the fish. That means his mother took a piece of fish as he was calling his mother very sadly, and his mother was flying towards him with the piece of fish, and then he became very happy and says he leaned out eagerly, tapping the rock with his feet, trying to get nearer to her as she flew across. So when his mother came closer to him, as she was flying over it and she was trying to make him fly to catch the piece of the fish from her beak, and then he was trying to get nearer to her as she flew across. That means she started to bend or move forward, tapping the rock with his feet. So he was trying to catch the fish when his mother was coming nearer to him. But when she was just opposite to him, she halted, her wings motionless, the piece of fish in her beak almost within reach of his beak. So here the author is saying that when she was just opposite to him, that means when his mother came closer from behind, she halted, her wings motionless. That means she was fluttering in the air and just stopped and did not fly, and she just stood in the air for some time and says the piece of fish in her beak almost within the reach of his beak. That means a piece of fish that his mother was carrying was very near to the bird seagull, but she did not give him to eat that piece of fish because she wanted to make him fly and stopped there for some time, and says he waited a moment in surprise, wondering why she did not come nearer, and then maddened by hunger he dived at the fish. So as his mother came very near to him carrying a piece of fish, but she did not give him to eat, and he waited for a moment in surprise. That means he thought for a moment that why his mother is not giving him food and why she is standing near him with her motionless wings, and she is wondering why she did not come nearer. That means he was also thinking why she is not coming nearer to him to give him food, and then maddened by hunger he dived at the fish. That means after seeing a piece of fish in his mother's beak, he could not control his hunger, and then he forgot everything and started moving towards his mother to get that fish madly. Further he says with a loud scream he fell outwards and downwards into space. So here he is saying that this seagull started shouting out loud because he fell outwards and downwards into space. That means when he tried to catch the fish from his mother's beak, he forgot everything about fear of flying and all because he was feeling hungry and couldn't control his hunger, and dived towards his mother and then fell out downwards into space. And says then a monster terror seized him and his heart stood still. So when he fell downwards into the space, he was floating in the air, and then a monster terror seized him. That means a dangerous and scary terror took a hold of him and his heart stood still. That means he was not able to breathe properly and he was feeling very frightened because it was the first time when he jumped into space, and says he could hear nothing. So due to fear he could not able to hear anything, even though His mother was also screaming, but he was not able to hear anything, and says, but it only lasted a minute. So when this bird was falling down and down, he was feeling very frightened, but it only lasted a minute. That means he felt frightened just for a moment, because the next moment he felt his wings spread outwards. So the next moment everything was fine, and suddenly his wings spread outwards automatically, and then he felt relaxed because he was not going down anymore, and his wings started supporting him while flying in the air. The wind rushed against his breast feathers, then under his stomach and against his wings. So when this seagull was in the air, he felt the wind was blowing, and the wind was touching all parts of his body, such as his breast feathers, his stomach, and especially his wings, and says he could feel the tips of his wings cutting through the air. That means he started flying and moving his wings, and then he could feel the tips of his wings cutting through the air. That means he could feel in the air his wings flapping automatically. So he was flying smoothly, effortlessly, and following his mother because he was very hungry and wanted to eat that piece of fish, and says he was not falling headlong now. So now he understood that his wings are going to support him and flying in the air, and now he was not falling headlong. So headlong means head going down first, and says he was soaring gradually downwards and outwards. So now he was able to fly in the air, and sometime he was going down and sometime upward in the air with his mother. Further, he says he was no longer afraid. So when he was flying in the air, he got to know that he is not going to fall, and then he gathered confidence and all his fear vanished, and he was no longer afraid, and says he just felt a bit dizzy. So while flying he felt a bit dizzy, that means he felt sleepy, and then he flapped his wings once and he soared upwards. So he gathered courage, and then he started flapping his wings and moving up and down in the air fearlessly, and then he started flying upwards, and then his mother started screaming, ga ga ga, ga ga ga, gaw kol a. His mother sobbed past him, her wings making a loud noise. So his mother was very happy to see him while flying, and she was making noise and calling his entire family to fly with a little bird, and she was also flying along with him, and says he answered her with another scream. So when he saw his mother was screaming, then the little bird also answered back to her mother with another scream in order to let her know that he is no more frightened. And then his father flew over him, and his parents were very happy to see him, and they started flying with him. Then his father flew over him screaming. So here his father and mother flew over him screaming happily, because they were so happy to see the little birds flying, because earlier he was not able to come out from the ledge, and now he was able to fly along with his parents without any difficulties. And says he saw his two brothers and his sister flying around him, coveting and banking and soaring and diving. So during taking his first flight, he saw his two brothers and his sister flying around him. That means he saw his siblings were also flying with him, and praised him out loud. And how his sister and brothers were flying? They were flying around him, coveting. That means they were jumping up and down in the air, and banking. That means they were also changing their position and angling with the wings towards the one's direction to another. And then soaring and diving, that means his brother and sister were flying towards the sky without moving their wings, and then coming down towards the sea without moving the wings to get fish from the water. So this is how they were showing him that how to fly and how to catch the fish. And says then he completely forgot that he had not always been able to fly, and commanded himself dive and soar and curve, shrinking shrilly. So when this seagull was flying with his entire family and learning how to fly, he completely forgot that he had not always been able to fly. That means he just forgot everything, as earlier he was so frightened and believed that his wings would not support him. And says and commanded himself to dive and soar and curve, shrinking shrilly. That means now he can command his wings as per his wish, and now he can go up and dive down, and he can move left and right using his wings, shrinking shrilly. That means making with loud noise, and he was able to fly across the sky. Further, he says he was near the sea now, flying straight over it, facing straight out over the ocean. So here the author is saying that now this little seagull was able to fly easily and he was near the sea now. That means after diving up and down and moving left and right with his brothers and sister, then he dives down towards the sea and now he was near the sea. That means he was flying just over the sea water, and sea is flying straight over it. That means he was just flying over the sea water as if he was searching for fish to eat and facing straight out over the ocean. That means he was looking down towards the sea while flying, just like his parents and siblings used to fly in search of food. And says he saw a vast green sea beneath him with little ridges moving over it, and he turned his beak sideways and cawed amusedly. So while flying just over the sea, he saw a vast green beneath him. That means he saw a very deep and broader sea under him with little ridges moving over it. That means he saw there were small waves of water in the sea, and then he turned his beak sideways and cawed amusedly. So finally he moved from one side to another and made a very loud noise because he was very happy, because he was no more frightened. His parents and his brothers and sister had landed on this green flooring ahead of him. So here, as he was flying just over the sea behind his parents, and then his parents and brothers and sister had landed on this green flooring. That means his parents and siblings jumped into the surface of the water. And why they landed into the water? Because they wanted to teach him how to jump into the water for catching the fish. So green flooring means surface of the water or top level of the water, and says they were beckoning to him, calling shrilly. So when he saw his entire family was on the surface of the water, his parents were beckoning to him, calling shrilly. That means they were calling him with a high pitched noise to come closer to them, or telling him to land on the surface of the water. So shrilly means loudly or high pitched sound, and says he dropped his leg to stand on the green sea. So as his family beckoning to him, and then he also jumped into the surface of the water and his legs to stand in the sea. So now he was on the surface of the water along with his family, and says his legs sank into it. That means when he stand on the green sea or sat on the top of the water, he started moving downwards into the water. He screamed with fright and attempted to rise again, flapping his wings. So as his legs were sinking into the water, and then he screamed with fright. That means again he started crying because he was feeling frightened, and then he attempted to rise again, flapping his wings. That means again he was trying to flap his wings to fly out from the surface of the water. So attempted means to trying to do something that is difficult to do, and screamed means crying out loud. And says but he was tired and weak with hunger, and he could not rise, exhausted by the strange exercise. So while flying just over the sea, he saw a vast green beneath him. That means he saw a very deep and broader sea under him with little ridges moving over it. That means he saw there were small waves of water in the sea, and then he turned his beak sideways and cawed amusedly. So finally he moved from one side to another and made a very loud noise because he was very happy, because he was no more frightened. Further he says he was floating on it, and around him his family was screaming, praising him, and their beaks were offering him scraps of dogfish. So here finally this little bird was floating on the surface of the water, and around him his family was screaming. That means his parents and siblings were there with him and shouting out loud because they were so happy to see him. And what they were doing around him, they were praising him, and other beaks were offering scraps of dogfish. That means his whole family came closer to him and cheered him all around because they were very happy to see the little bird, how he was floating on the surface of the water. And on the other hand, he also learned how to fly and dive up and down in the air, and his parents were giving him scraps of dogfish. That means a piece of dogfish, because he was so hungry. So the whole family cheered the little seagull, and says he had made his first flight. So finally he made his first flight successfully, and now no longer he is frightened, and he was able to overcome the fear and showed courage to fly along with his family without any difficulty, and he was able to fly for the first time. So in this way the narrator is saying that he had made his first flight. So moral of the story is, all we have to fear is fear itself. That means once you get frightened, you will set a different mindset to think about it, and then that mindset will be called fear, and it will not help you what you want to do in your life. And once you will be able to find out the solution of it, you will be able to move further in life with courage and confidence. So this is the end of the chapter, his first flight. I hope you like the video. For more informative videos, do subscribe my channel, hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever new video will be uploaded. So let's look at the second part of the chapter in my next video. Thank you so much for watching once again. Stay safe, stay healthy.